I think that one of the big things for me was decatastrophizing sleep. So, like I mentioned before, when I was younger, it was like, I have to sleep, and if I don't sleep, I won't be able to function tomorrow, and it's not really like that for me anymore. I see it more as resting and relaxing, and if I don't get 100% sleep, like, that's okay too. I can still function and do my job and do what I need to do tomorrow.
Hi, welcome to Sleepy Sessions. I'm Dr. Laura Knotts. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and today I'm here with Dr. Dan Volk. He is also a licensed clinical psychologist, and he is the owner of Zen Psychology and Wellness. He specializes in treating anxiety disorders and obsessive compulsive disorder with evidence-based treatment. And he works with adults, but also children and adolescents. His practice also offers assessment services. So if you're interested, check out his website. He is the go-to person for all of us in our peer consultation group for all things related to OCD and anxiety. And thank you so much for all you've offered. You've been a great support and offered a lot of guidance to us all.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Let's start off with our usual question, our check-in of how did you sleep last night?
Yeah, I slept pretty well last night. So I probably went to sleep around like 10-ish or 11-ish. I'm never quite sure. I don't check the clock at night. And I slept well, and I would say once I fall asleep, I'm a pretty heavy sleeper. I don't usually wake up.
Yeah, not looking at the clock. You're not being too aware or rigid about the time, which we'll get more into later. And how would you describe yourself as a sleeper? I know that we talk about acceptance and commitment therapy. Words are important. So what words would you use to describe yourself as a sleeper?
I would say as a sleeper, I kind of view sleep as like rest, like I see it more as like a behavioral kind of rest period, because I think sometimes like sleep, it creates pressure for people. So it's like, oh, we have to be asleep, and we can't really control sleep, but controlling rest and controlling being comfortable and cozy. So I kind of see it like that, and seeing it as resting when my body wants to rest.
And does sleep come easily to you? Are you someone who's slept well always? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, no, definitely not. I'm not somebody who's always slept well. I think in the past my relationship with sleep was more contentious. Like when I was younger, I would sometimes stress about getting enough sleep, or my mind would be kind of filled with all sorts of things when I would go to sleep. But I found that over time, as I sort of practice winding down towards the end of the night, yes, there are times where my mind's still really busy, but I use certain practices to try to help myself feel more calm at night, and also to kind of signal to my brain that it's time to rest. And that's been really helpful for me. So, and just taking the pressure off has been probably the biggest help for me.
Yeah, and it is very relatable, and it's also hopeful to hear that it doesn't come easily to you, and you slept well last night. You figured something out that works for you. So that leads into our last question, which is the big one of, do you have any resources, whether they're clinical or anecdotal, that have helped you improve your relationship with sleep?
Yeah, I think that one of the big things for me was decatastrophizing sleep. So, like I mentioned before, when I was younger, it was like, I have to sleep, and if I don't sleep, I won't be able to function tomorrow, and it's not really like that for me anymore. I see it more as resting and relaxing, and if I don't get 100% sleep, that's okay too. I can still function and do my job and do what I need to do tomorrow. And I think even just kind of that little trick of just taking the pressure off and feeling more calm really helps me at night. Sometimes we think we have to be 100% in order to be effective the next day, or our brain's like, oh, if I don't sleep, then I'm going to not do well at that presentation tomorrow, or I'm not going to be able to work, or this kind of thing. I don't necessarily believe that's true. I think we're pretty resilient, and I think that a lot of times we don't need to be 100% to be able to be effective and to do what we're going to do the next day. And I sometimes try to have my clients frame that as either a little bit of a behavioral experiment or a test for themselves, or to see it as, well, let's say you don't sleep well tonight, but tomorrow you show up to work and you're able to be effective, get through your day, you're able to go to school, you're able to learn and do what you need to do. What are you going to learn from that, right? You're going to learn that, hey, you know what? I was able to get through today without, being 100%. So, maybe I really don't need that in order to be effective. And it just takes the pressure off for the next night. Or I'll have them say, if I don't sleep well tonight, I'll sleep really well tomorrow night, or something like that. Another thing that a lot of times I'll share with clients and that I practice myself is what I call intuitive sleep, which is about going to sleep when you're sleepy instead of putting pressure on yourself to fall asleep at a certain point in time. So rather than saying, I have to go to sleep at 10 o'clock because if I don't go to sleep at 10 o'clock, that means I won't get enough hours of sleep and I'll be a mess tomorrow and that kind of thing. I'm a really strong believer in like following your body's cues. So sleeping when your body tells you it's time to sleep. And it also helps create a better relationship with your body, like a sense of trust with your body. Like I let my body kind of tell me when it's time to go to sleep. And so for me, like I'll do a little bit of breathing, a little bit of meditation before bed. And that's kind of like my way of telling my brain, hey, and I don't do it in bed. I do it in a separate location. And that's kind of like my way of telling my brain that it's the end of the night. We're starting to kind of settle down. And then, I'll get into bed and do a little bit of reading. And as I start to kind of drift a little bit while I'm reading, that's kind of my signal, my body signal to me that maybe it's time to like close our eyes and try to get to sleep. So I really wait for my body to like give me that cue instead of determine like a specific time that I should be going to sleep. And I really don't look at the clock at all either. So I never really know when I fall asleep actually. And that works much better for me because then I don't do the math,
That math.
Yeah, the math will. Yeah, the math will drive you nuts, right?
Yeah.
It'll like how many hours? So sometimes if I've got a lot on my mind or I'm feeling like really busy mind or really anxious, I'll use a little bit of acceptance commitment therapy, and I'll kind of say like, okay, there's a busy mind going on right now. It's okay to feel a little anxious right now. No problem. There's nothing we need to solve right now. This is our time for sleeping. And so we're not going to figure out any big decisions right now and that kind of thing. And I'll kind of almost like laugh at my brain a little bit for trying to be a problem solver at this point in time. And I usually find that just kind of settling into that a little bit. And, instead of being like, oh, I'm so frustrated, I usually find that kind of like settling into that and just saying, it's okay to feel this way, no problem. And bringing my attention to my breath, that really helps.
Yeah, I really like that acceptance and commitment therapy take on it too, where you are getting that distance from the thoughts that are ready to kind of rile you up, create that anxiety. And it's like, okay, what if this is kind of silly? You take the seriousness out of it and just say, this is, you can laugh at yourself a little bit. And I also, the more I think about sleep and the techniques to help us fall asleep, the more I think about us like reparenting ourselves in these moments of like how you're comforting yourself and helping yourself cope through having that potential, anxious thought. So that's really nice to hear how you handle those challenging moments. I am curious with using your meditation, how is that helpful to you to practice your meditation outside of the bed and then transition to it?
Yeah, well, I find that with the meditation practice that if I do it like in bed, like if I do it intentionally in bed like that, I find that it gets like a little bit blended with sleep. Like, so sometimes like I'll do it and then I'll get tired and I feel like I'm not really giving meditation like that attention that it deserves. Like I like to have like a very intentional practice where I'm actually like literally going to a different place. Because I think that it kind of signals to my brain and to my body that I'm willing to like carve out a separate space for this and make time for this. But I use the meditation in bed when I need it. So I find that it like kind of practicing outside the room helps me to like actually bring it into the room when I need it.
The practice too of the meditation, how this is a coping skill, it's really helpful in your relationship with thoughts too, which then is helpful with your relationship with sleep. So using all of these components and then taking that pressure off of I need to fall asleep, that is something that as people who are anxious, it could really be a big part of the struggle with sleep.
The other thing that is helpful for me sometimes is if you have a partner or whatever, and they're sleeping, sometimes you can kind of match their breath a little bit too as you're breathing. I find that that's also really helpful because if they're sleeping, they're having that kind of slow inhale and exhale naturally in their sort of sleep rhythm. I find that matching their breath can also help you to kind of slow your breath down too. So that's another thing that has been helpful for me at times.
Oh, that's such a nice idea. Yeah. Do you have, just last thing, is there a specific guided meditation that works for you? Is there one that you would recommend?
there's a really good podcast episode on OCD stories. So OCD stories is my favorite podcast. I listen to that a lot, those episodes. And a lot of my clients get a lot of benefit from those episodes. But there's one in particular that's called Sleep, the Hostage of Anxiety by Dr. Stephen Phillipson. And he talks a lot about sleep and the concepts of anxiety and how to, helpful ways to view sleep and also helpful strategies. So I found a lot of clients get benefit from that as well.
That's great. I haven't even heard of this podcast before, so I'm really glad to know about that, and I will be checking that out myself too. That sounds great.
Very cool.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Volk. This has been really nice to hear about your relationship with sleep and your journey with it and what's helped you, and I'm sure it's going to be really helpful for people listening, and thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.